one of her people to take out a policy, and he was like, no.
James Robinson. He's the one
that got wise.
that
the
got
one
away.
that got away.
The one.
She's just the world's unluckiest mother and wife.
Marianne Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten. Lying in bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, oh what should I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, she's tied up with string. Where, up in the air, selling black puddings, a penny a pair. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and forgotten, lying in bed with her bones all rotten. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, tied up with string.
Hi, welcome to Skullworthy. I'm Matt.
I'm Tiffany.
And today we're talking about Mary Ann Cotton.
Also known as the Black Widow.
Stay tuned.
Mary Ann Cotton. She is also known as the Black Widow. She was born October 31st, 1832 in England. She is known as one of the very first female serial killers. However, there were female serial killers before her that killed in the same way that she did. But she's written down as the one that is known as the first. In her childhood, I give you a little background. Her father fell down a 150-foot down a mine shaft and died very early on, so that was an issue with her growing up. But then she left home at 16 to become a nurse, and then she returned a few years later to train as a dressmaker. In 1852, she married a man by the name of William Mowbray, and I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. They had 8 to 9 children, of which all but 3 had died from gastric fever.
8 to 9 children, though. What's the? I just don't understand. What's the gap there? Do they have a half a child?
I mean, you could even it out and put 8.5, but no. At the time this was happening, it was back in the 1800s, so documentation was scarce.
So we have limited information.
Yeah, a lot of this is speculation, but most of it's kind of known, but not all of it. So it could have been 8, could have been 9, could have been 8.5. We just don't know. But 3 survived. That's what matters. 3 survived.
To be killed later?
Yes.
Oh.
Gastric fever is something that had similar symptoms to arsenic poisoning, but because of the lack of technology, it was really hard to differentiate between this gastric fever or flat-out murder. In 1856, Mowbray took out a life insurance policy on him and 3 of the remaining kids. So in 1864, Mowbray also died from this gastric fever. Soon after, 2 of those 3 children suffered the same fate. So he had taken the life insurance policy out on himself and the 3 children, of which he and 2 of the children passed away. Life insurance was collected by Mary, of course, and the one surviving daughter was left in the care of Mary's mother. In 1865, Mary ended up working as a hospital nurse and married a patient by the name of George Ward. George died the next year, and Mary received his insurance money. Do you see a trend? Because I'm seeing a trend.
So at the very least, it seems like death tends to follow this woman.
At this point, I don't even think it's coincidence anymore. This is like, stay out of her path. She is mowing people down.
Yeah, I was mildly being sarcastic. Mildly. But we're only like halfway through her death toll, right? So the coincidences get even better.
And at this point, not only has she killed off all of her children, but she's ending up having 2 more with a new guy.
Well,
why?
You can only claim life insurance on them once.
That is true.
Can't kill them twice.
But my thing is, you've seen that you've had this many children die. She's had this many children die, and you still want to marry her. And also, some of your children had died in her presence. Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like go to Vegas and is happily ever after. We could just stop right there.
Yeah, it seems like even just recognizing the pattern would be enough to be like, I don't know, bad things seem to follow you. I think I'm going to look elsewhere for some romantic interests. And
she had to be charming. Of some sort to be able to get...
serial killers were, but I wonder
I wonder to what extent.
Yeah, I wonder how charming she was to be able to get away with all of that.
In 1866, she became a housekeeper for James Robinson, who was also widowed with 5 children. Ironically, in the same year, one of his children died from gastric fever as well. In 1867, while she was still with Robinson, her mother became unwell. And she went home to take care of her mother, and as a good daughter would. But then the next week, her mother died. And I don't know if that is at her hands or not, but I'm going to assume. Mary Ann then took her one surviving daughter and ended up moving in with James Robinson that had the 5 kids and his now 4 kids. In 1867, Mary's surviving daughter from the very first marriage and 2 more of his children, her stepchildren, also passed. I mean, they're just adding up like crazy. Mary and James then decided to get married. I mean, all these children are dying around them, but it sounds like a good idea to get married. And in 1864, somehow magically, he also died from this gastric fever. Soon after that, 2 of the 3 children suffered the same fate. So it was not coincidence that the life insurance came out. The life insurance was collected, and the one surviving daughter was left in the care of Mary's mother. Mary went off in 1865 and worked as a hospital nurse, at which point she then married a patient named George Ward. George Ward died the next year, and Mary received his insurance money. In 1866, she became a housekeeper to James Robinson, who was widowed with 5 children. Ironically, in the same year, one of his children died from this gastric fever as well.
Well, this is already getting interesting, and we're only like halfway through this.
Oh, yeah. So there's more. As it turns out, Mary and James ended up getting married, which makes it seem like he's not the brightest, seeing her trail of destruction behind her, but he actually turns things around. They ended up having 2 children together. After all of her other children had died, they ended up producing more. Sounds good. One of them survived. I don't know, the records are really off with this one, so I'm not really sure if one may have been a stillbirth or a complication, or if she had caused that as well. It's not really known, so her other child may or may not be a victim of hers, but it wasn't uncommon at these times for children to not make it to birth, but we don't know. So in 1869, James actually caught Mary stealing from him. He then became suspicious of her repeated requests for him to take out a life insurance policy, which does seem rather suspicious. And again, the records are unclear. He most likely kicked her out of the house, but she could have possibly left on her own. Either way, she became homeless. And she still got these 2 children, right? In 1870, Mary ended up meeting Frederick Cotton, who was also widowed. His wife had died as well. But I don't think he has as many as she does. In the same year, his sister and his youngest child ended up passing. Coincidence? Mary and Frederick ended up getting married after that too, in September 1870. And Mary was never divorced from Robinson. So Robinson actually kicked her out. She became homeless, and then she went and got remarried, which is not legal, so it's not a legal marriage at this point to Frederick. But nonetheless, it happened. They ended up having a son together. Mary and Frederick had a son. Because why not? By the end of 1871, the husband and 2 more children had died as well. 2 more of her children. They all had insurance policies.
Wait, so at this point, nobody's gotten suspicious? I mean, how in the world is she getting away with all of this?
The only thing I can think of is that the documentation was so jacked up at this point.
And forensics was really bad then, too.
Right. They all, I mean, the plague, I don't know when that was, but it took out a lot of people, so why would the gastric fever be
It's not too hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too terrible, and I'm sure that a lot of these aren't being linked back to her because she's not the one dying over and over. So maybe she just continues to move.
She's just the world's unluckiest mother and wife. Horribly
and
unlucky.
daughter. And daughter-in-law, sister-in-law.
But apparently is racking up a net worth at this point, right? From all of these insurance
She should
policies.
be.
She should be
what
very
she
wealthy.
did with this money, that is what I want to know. Like, what
Yeah.
did she buy? Clearly nothing for her kids, because she didn't have any after so many. You know, I mean, what did she buy?
What do you guys think? What would you buy if you were this lady?
I mean, she had to
more
rack
poison, maybe?
Yeah, she was
More supplies.
It was just funding her endeavors, her on the side hobbies. I don't know what she was buying. So, since her husband and 2 more of her children died in 1871, she was now left alone, but not for long. Because then she ended up shacking up with a previous lover, which I'm assuming is a previous boyfriend that she never married, named Joseph Natras. I'm assuming that's how it's said, but it keeps trying to autocorrect to mattress. So, we're going to go with that. During which time, she became pregnant yet again. But get this, not by Joseph. She was living with Joseph. She ended up getting pregnant by a man named John Quick Manning. Or in some documentations, his name is known as Richard Quick Man. In 1872, her previous lover died. Some sources say with, and someone say without an insurance policy. So Mary may have received what few belongings he did have, even though they were not married. If speculation wasn't already surrounding Mary by this time, which it absolutely should have, but I think she actually moved from town to town, but her reputation should precede her either way. She ended up speaking to a local official, and I'm not sure why she was speaking to him. She wasn't a suspect or anything, but she was talking to him about how she could not marry John Quick Manning because of her stepson. I don't know what her stepson had to do with it, but he was what she was complaining about. His name is Charles Edward Cotton. He was 7 years old. She then claimed to the same official these words, "I won't be troubled long," possibly also adding, "He will go like all the rest of the Cottons." The stepson ended up dying, obviously, and the official went to the police. The official also went to the doctors and asked the doctor to delay the death certificate because the life insurance policy could not be paid out until there was a death certificate, and he wanted to wait for the death certificate until the death could be investigated because he did not want her to have that money. She was not pleased with this, obviously. Some accounts say that the jury agreed the child died as a result of natural causes, with Mary claiming the official had made it all up because she had refused his advances. So now we're getting into narcissistic territory. So the media ended up catching wind of this story, and they ran with it. Samples from the boy's autopsy were kept for some reason, and they were taken and retested. Arsenic was said to be found in the boy's stomach as well, at which time they ended up exhuming Natras, her previous lover, and 2 other children of hers, and also found arsenic as the cause of their death. Mary was then charged with the murder of her 7-year-old stepson. Why she wasn't charged with everything, I'm not sure. She may have been, but again, documentation is iffy. In January 1873, Mary was in jail, but wasn't over because she ended up giving birth to a daughter while behind bars. Who the dad was, I'm not really sure. This was suspected to be her 13th child. Now, only one other one that we know of that we believe has survived at this point. She named this child, as if the last FU to the world, Margaret, which was her mother's name, Edith Quick Manning, which was her previous husband's name, Cotton, which was another husband's last name. Only one other child of Mary's was believed to have survived. At the trial, Mary's defense claimed that those murders were actually the result of them inhaling arsenic dust from the wallpaper dye. That was later disproved. I'm not going to get into that. Even though arsenic was common in everyday items at that point. So it wasn't really a bad defense. But in totality, it was not good. The jury ended up not buying it once. All the deaths surrounding Mary came to light, and Mary was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. The Times reported on March 20th, after conviction, the wretched woman exhibited strong emotion, but this gave place in a few hours to her habitual, cold, reserved demeanor. And while she harbors a strong conviction that the royal clemency will be extended towards her, she staunchly asserts her innocence of the crime that she has been convicted of. March 24th, 1873, Mary was executed at approximately 41 years of age, and presumably, still unknown, 21 years after what was believed to be her first murder. The execution did not go as planned. Some will say because the executioner was clumsy. Others will say it was intentional. Either way, the trapdoor, when she went to go be hanged, the trapdoor was not high enough to break her neck. So the executioner had to manually finish the job by pushing down on her shoulders, causing strangulation, at which point, 3 minutes later, she ended up dying. Due to the lack of documentation, it is not known for certain the total of deaths at the hands of Mary, but many approximate it to be around 21 or more. Deaths that were absolutely known were 3 of her 4 husbands and 11 of her 13 children. Now, this is not including her mom and her sister, or her mom and one of her husband's sisters, whatever the case may be, but those are at the very least the amount that she had killed that are absolutely known.
Well, she got awfully braggy at the end, didn't she?
Yeah, I mean, I think she wanted somebody to notice her, like, look what I've done. Why am I not getting recognized for this? But she did. She got recognized. But I also want to say something else, which I think is really funny. A nursery rhyme, and a bunch of songs as well, but a nursery rhyme ended up being made because of her. And I'm going to read this to you because I want to see what you actually think about it. Marianne Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten, lying in bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, oh what should I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, she's tied up with string. Where, up in the air, selling black puddings in a penny a pair. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and forgotten, lying in bed with her bones all rotten. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, tied up with string.
That's
graphic.
Yeah, that's it's a grim little.
It's graphic, especially for children. Be, I mean, it's a nursery rhyme. Who would sing that to their baby?
Well, wasn't the ashes to ashes?
Yeah, I mean,
thing, wasn't that?
It was about the plague. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of but we all sang that one as kids and didn't know. And then as an adult, I was like, wow,
Who let us?
Who
let this happen?
But at least they sheltered us from this one because that was a.
Well, this was back in the 1800s, so I'm sure the nursery rhyme died out with the knowledge of her at that point. I mean, there have been documentaries on her here and there, but, I mean, it was so long ago that a lot of people don't want to... I mean, they know who she is. It's not like Jack the Ripper. They don't know who he is. That one's still being speculated, so...
Yeah.
At the time, I mean, I wasn't around, obviously, so I don't know, but was it the same life insurance company that was paying out to her? I mean, wouldn't that have
That's
been...
a good question. If it was the same life insurance, probably... hey, Mary, are you back so
back
soon?
Again.
You know?
Here's some more money. I mean...
Surely she was smart enough to use different life insurance companies.
Well, she wasn't taking out the life insurance. That's
but
why...
she was the beneficiary.
Yeah.
But,
that may have been why she didn't
helps.
get caught so quickly.
Yeah, if she was the one taking them out and claiming them over and over again, but since she was getting married and then it sounds like there was one point you were saying that she was trying to encourage one of her people to take out a policy, and he was like, no.
James Robinson. He's the one
that got wise.
That got away.
The one that got away. Poor Mary. She didn't get to get all of her victims.
Smart man.
It wriggled right out of her hands.
He's like, I don't need a life insurance
I don't
policy.
plan on dying anytime soon. What are you talking about?
I'm not going anywhere. Are you going somewhere?
And then she kept pressing, so she got kicked out finally.
But also, here's another question. I don't know that in studying this, I didn't find how she got it into her victims. That is my question.
Her delivery method.
Yeah, did she put it in their food? Which is possible. I mean, does it have a taste?
Women were expected to cook and do all these things back then. There's a lot of opportunities.
Wouldn't it have a taste? Be like, ooh, you're a bad cook. Like, why does all your stuff taste the same?
I want to say that arsenic doesn't have a flavor, or at least the deadly dose that it takes doesn't have a flavor to register. But I think we've all ate food that kind of tasted a little different than what we were expecting, and you don't think anything of it unless something bad happens immediately. So it's safe to say that she could probably have dosed them low enough that they wouldn't have noticed something was wrong until something was wrong. If she was doing end-to-end food prep, say she was cooking the food and everything and also making the plates, she could go to the extent of setting the table and doing everything for months or years or whatever prior to that so that it doesn't seem odd. And then one day, one dinner, that's the one she decides is it, and she slips a little something. She puts out her food on her plate and does theirs last and puts the poison in there, mixes it up, and then puts their,
But then again, I guess it goes back to, does it have a taste? Because if it did, then it would be better to mix it in.
You notice those mashed potatoes didn't taste like those mashed potatoes you had last week.
It would make more sense to mix it in than throw it on top or whatever the case may be.
Right. But again, some poisons don't have that much flavor, and I'm not a cereal poisoner. I don't know.
We're not going to test it.
And I'm not going to do a little taste test of arsenic and other things, but I think that an amount that is bad enough to kill somebody is probably not going to register enough flavor for them to spit it out and be like, you're trying to poison me. I think it's... she could get away with it just like she did.
She did.
But
she needed recognizing.
She's not the first serial killer to do that eventually, to get a stroke of ego and decide that they want to be recognized. I guess it's something about seeing other serial killers get recognized, and maybe you feel like you need
she
that
got her 15 minutes of fame. But also, I think what woman in general, you don't expect women to be serial killers because.
Do we say she's a special kind of evil because a mother that kills their own children is... We all know a lot of mothers, and I can guarantee that most of us don't know a mother that's willing to kill their own children.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions, I'm sure.
And, in moments, maybe. Momentarily.
Passing moments don't count as actual motive.
But no, I would think there had to be some sort of mental issue there.
Oh, it was definitely a
disconnect.
Fuse burned out, or three,
three.
I feel like it really takes a level of, it goes without saying, with any of the videos like that we're talking about serial killers, it goes without saying that these people are reprehensible, terrible human beings, but a lot of them tend to have bad childhoods, and the one that I'll be talking about in our next video definitely had a rough childhood, and that's very typical. Do you have any information on what her childhood was like?
Yes, and I did mention that at the beginning, that her father died falling down a mine shaft.
But was she abused? Was she...
I don't know. She left home at 16, but back then, that may have even been late. Because I know I had my great-grandmother was already married at 14. So,
I'll try not to cringe at that. That's pretty bad. But...
And pregnant as well. It just... Times have changed so quickly that I don't know what the standard was at that point. Either way,
So we don't have, we know that the childhood probably wasn't great, but we don't have anything concrete to point to and be like, this is kind of what contributed to driving this person over the edge. And a lot of times serial killers have profiles that they'll match and kind of reasons for what they do, but this seemed to be very financially motivated, and that just, I don't know, something is striking about that to me, and it being a female. That's something I would expect to see more with a male than a female.
That's probably why she got away with it for so long, honestly.
Very unassuming.
Well, but also there was no like common person. I mean, yes, there were husbands, yes, there were children, but it wasn't all just one type of person.
Yes.
I mean, her mother possibly, her mother-in-law or her sister-in-law. I mean, there was not her ex-boyfriend. There was not a consistent pattern of that you can detect. Like, oh, this person would, in this role with this hair color or whatever. She was just all over the board because honestly, it just sounds like she liked killing people, or she just liked the money, or both.
Satisfaction. I guess that's what we'll agree on. Satisfaction of killing and the power. That's a very common one for serial killers. So maybe maybe there was something that was undocumented in her childhood that made her feel very powerless or something, and it left.
Or she just was a woman in the 1800s.
I see no problems with that statement.
Yeah. All right, so we forgot to film an outro to our last video, but
we did.
We're doing it now. So, subscribe. We have another video coming, and it's about...
the next one will be about Michael Wayne McGray. If you like this content, definitely share. That helps to subscribe. We need that. Subscribe, comment. Tell us who you want to see next. Yeah, if you have any suggestions, that would be totally fine. Drop them in the comments below. We will probably do it. Yep. See you next time.